Welcome, everybody, to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. This is going to be episode 4. Got myself that time. Episode 4 of Season 3. Proud to say it's our third season with the show going. It's something that makes you feel nice and warm and fuzzy inside, Don't you agree, Gary?
Quick, though.
Anyway,
our title runs in search of living legends. Well, we found the living legend.
Yes.
Josh Turner, folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like found him. No, I'm not. No.
Yeah, and we're with Gary saying that, we're very, very honored and proud to say we've got Mr. Josh Turner with us tonight to have a conversation with us. How you doing, Josh? Thanks for coming on, man. It's an honor.
Folks. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. Our pleasure, man.
No, I don't do many interviews. I don't go on other people's shows very often.
We know that.
Yeah, so that's why, we really appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thank
Josh, I was talking with Jeremiah last week, and he mentioned you, and he said, I wonder if he'd come on. I said, yeah, give him a buzz. See if he'd come on, and you came on right. You agreed right away, which is we were really happy about.
Well, it's you and Nick and Roberts. I mean, that's y'all are good guys. I'm with there's certain reasons why I don't go on a lot of shows. I don't really know.
You're right. Yeah.
So, like I was saying before we came on, for somebody like me, I've been following your show for years, way back in the beginning, all the way up, and it's an honor for me to sit across the table from you because like I said, I feel like I know you from interacting with you so much and listening to your podcasts and stuff. So it's definitely a big honor for this fellow podcaster up here to be able to sit across a microphone with. Of course, anytime I'm on with these two, these are my brothers, but
yeah,
it's an honor to have you on, man.
Well, I appreciate you guys inviting me.
I was thrilled to have the chance to, throw some questions at you, Josh. I've been on your show a few times. It was a lot of fun, and I was just this is great. I'm glad
we're gonna have some fun tonight. Yes, these guys will tell you, Josh. We like to have a good time, but we get our point. We get our points across. We have fun with it, Mr. Gary Spikes and Mr. Valente here were avoiding their introductions. I noticed. We've got Mr. Gary Spikes with us, my brother from another mother, up there in the left-hand corner. How you doing, Gary?
Doing good, man. Finally, I had to take some time off tonight to do this one, but
I'm glad you did, man.
Can wait a little while.
Glad you're always an honor, man. Nicola, same with you, man. Always an honor. Thank you for being here. Means a lot.
How's the group going? Your group growing?
Oh, my group?
Yeah, well, you and both y'all's groups.
Oh, well, my group just hit over 3,801 people today. That's just the North American one. The international group is going on 400, and Quad Coalition isn't growing as fast as I thought it would, but little by little, I get members here and there. I'm getting quite a few people from your paranormal roundtable joining, this past week, Josh.
Oh yeah.
I think I got 1,200 right now on the trail, and then my wife has a group as well, and she's got about 1,000, and then me and Nick and Gary, myself, a few other guys just have a little small, about 8 of us to do these round tables and do these shows together, so we keep try to keep that small, but yeah, I mean it's a good time,
But you've had some good guests on. I mean, Carter Bouchard, on 3 times in a row. I mean, we needed 3 times to get through everything because it was just too much information in one show. So
Carter is now a permanent fixture on the other show, by the way.
Oh, good.
Who is it again?
He's an author out of Kansas City. He's written like 13 books, I think, altogether.
He's a big
very sharp.
What's Sasquatch?
On all cryptids.
Okay.
Might need to get him in touch with Josh. He's got a lot of experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been corresponding recently, actually yesterday and the day before, with Melba Ketchum, but I'm trying to get her on the show. And even though Martin reached out to her, she's dealing with a situation where her house, the roof caved in with all the weather, the bad weather.
Oh wow.
Man.
So I'm not able to get her. I really wanted to talk to her about some of the things that she's uncovered in her research. And so it's unfortunate, that she couldn't, get on the show with me. But yeah, I definitely am planning at some point to talk to her, because I do feel like she has a lot of pertinent information to this. So
Sure.
I got to plug my phone in real quick, gentlemen.
Absolutely. I love, there's so much that she has not talked about that anybody of her caliber of experience and knowledge, that if you could give her an opportunity, if she would open up, you're literally just looking at the tip of the iceberg of what she did.
Yes.
I think if anybody, Josh would be able to get a lot of that info out of her.
Yeah.
After watching his shows all these, past couple of years, he'll definitely bring it out.
Well,
Anyway, without further ado, Jeremiah and Gary, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I'd like to start in with Josh. Josh, you've been out there interviewing people for so many years now and everything. I wanted to get down to the basics with you. When did you start with cryptozoology or cryptids or paranormal or anything like that? About how many years ago?
I guess, let me see. I was born in 1975. So it would have been, I was born in July. So it would have been like August of 1975.
Wow. Right from the cradle. Right from the cradle.
No, I'm not joking. Let me tell you something. My mom, before she passed away this past May, before my mother passed away, she would always brag about when I was a baby. She liked to tell people that I was talking at 10 months.
Wow.
And literally wasn't baby talk. My mom and dad, my grandparents, everybody, they thought it was strange that I could speak clearly, complete sentences at about 10 and a half months.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
That's kind of weird. I know it's weird. And then I would say weird things to people, like I was an adult at one time. I would tell people that. I don't remember being that young and telling people that, but I would get frustrated as a child. And I remember thinking that I had been an adult before. And I had some kind of weird things. My mother's family is Hispanic, and my mother, her mother said that I was born with ojo totaro, which is the gift of the eye, And so it didn't surprise anyone, in my family on that side, that I saw what I saw when I was 15. And that was what we know now as a dog man, whereas the Latinos in my hometown, they called it the hombre lobo, or the cadejo. But they're actually two different things. After the research I've done, I've learned that there are two different things. That the cadejo is like a curse, like a patrica. It's like something that somebody puts on you, And this hombre lobo is this half man, half wolf looking creature that roams around. And my tia would always tell me that this thing roams the streets at night, snatches up kids, and it's a bad thing, And then De La Chusa's in the trees, and La Llorona's down by the river, and Cocoy's in the closet, and you're going like, where am I safe? It's like,
right.
There's something everywhere just waiting to snatch you up and take your soul,
Yeah.
And so I didn't believe in any of these stories. I thought there was mentiras. It was like lies, just little white lies. You tell the kid to behave, stop acting, or something's going to happen. You're just going to
kind of like the Native Americans did. Don't go too far off into the woods, or the yaya lady will put you in her basket and bring you bring you and eat you.
Yeah.
And the owl lady is actually the La Chusa in the Latino culture. And so you had all these different legends, that were being taught to me when I was a kid. The Manos Paludos, which is like the hairy hand. It's a legend. And as a kid, we would take these long trips down to the mission, down to San Juan. And when I was a kid, we were driving on these long trips. I'd be like 8 hours, six to 8 hour trip. And by the time I got there, I was acting right, and I was scared and lighting candles left and right, because that's, I was like, I'm afraid something's going to happen, because my tias would sit there and scare the crap out of me, and so, yeah, but I never really believed, fully, in any of this, these cryptids and all this stuff until I was 15 and I saw one. And then after I saw that, then the whole world opened up to me in a different way. I thought, if this exists, and then I did a show episode on my show called Hell. Is it Demon? What is it? Anthony's here. Is it Hellhounds of Taylor, Texas? What'd you name it? Black Hellhounds of Taylor, Texas. Buddy of mine used to box with. Oddly enough, a guy I used to wrestle with was with me, and then a buddy I used to box with, both of them, and then another friend of ours. We were all together, and we were in the street. I was 17 at this point, and we saw this guy walking down the street that looked like he was I'm not making this up. He looked like he was a puppet, like he had no eyes.
Huh.
And he had these black dogs with him. And now you go to that episode on there. I think it's a two-parter. And Tony Duran, a good buddy of mine, I boxed with. Used to box in the South Austin Recreation Center, Pan Am here in Austin, and great fighter. Kicks like a mule.
What's his name then?
His name?
Yeah, it sounded awful familiar to me.
His name's Tony Duran. He's known pretty well locally as a pretty good fighter. His dad was deaf and he was a boxing coach, and Tony and his brother were both fighters. And we all were trained at the same facilities. We were Southside kids. When I moved from my hometown here to Austin, I went to a really bad school, and there's a lot of thugs, and so you had to be tough. So you had to team up with other kids that were tough. One of the things they did was they instituted like a boxing program at the recreation center. It was down the street from the school, which really just facilitated thugs being able to fight better. It was supposed to keep us out of trouble, but it really didn't. It just made us tougher. And so, and I went there, and I went to Metaphysical Recreation Center. And that's where Scorpion, my buddy that's been on the show a few times, that's where he's from, is that neighborhood. But we were all tough kids, we grew up tough, and we were sitting in the car and we saw this, and I'll tell you what, every one of us almost peed ourselves. It's no joke, And so when I was 15, I saw this one creature. Then I was 17, I saw that. Now, I don't know what those black dogs were. I can't sit here and say I saw the cadejo because I don't know. If I don't know something 100%, I don't call it an encounter, And I didn't talk about that for a long time because I had to find the time, the opportunity to get him on the show to verify what I was talking about, because you sound crazy when you start telling people this is what I saw. Well, this is what I saw. And Tony came on the show to back me up on that. He said that every time he went to Taylor after that, anytime he was ever in there, he used to lay fiber optic cable. And he said, every time I was in that area, he goes, I would always remember that. It was crazy, And the one I saw when I was 15, I saw with a guy named Daniel Robles. And he's become a preacher in my hometown, and he has told my wife and all the people that the encounter, out of his mouth is just from it's his perspective, but it's pretty much the same thing I've been saying for years. I know what I saw. People challenge me on it. It's like what you saw was what you saw, but what I saw was what I saw, and I know what I saw, and it looked like a freaking werewolf. And after that, I was playing ball, and some of the guys on the team were like, "Oh yeah, Wolf saw a wolf boy. He saw a werewolf, blah blah blah," because I was vocal about it. And then after doing lots of research and interviewing a lot of people, I started to figure out that there was a lot of people who'd seen this. And being a small town, there weren't a lot of people eager to talk about it, and because they don't want their name out there, but they would come and tell me kind of on the sly, like, hey, I've seen it too. My sister's ex-boyfriend saw it, saw a small one, but I would only think it was like a juvenile or something. I don't know, but what's weird is for 29 years, I always thought that it was a flesh and blood, and there was nothing more to it.
Yeah.
But then I was talking to my friend's brother. He was remodeling a house, and we went to go visit him. And that house is actually supposedly haunted. And while we were talking, it was me and Anthony. We were there talking to him. That Anthony's my nephew, helps me on the show. We heard this loud crash, and these two sawhorses had fallen over. So we were like, "Whoa, that's weird." And then we ended up talking about weird stuff. He said something like, weird stuff always happens around you. So then we talked about the encounter, and he said, I'll never forget the black vapors coming off the back of its neck. And I was like,
Oof.
What? Like, I was like, wait a minute, you saw black vapor? Because I didn't see that. And I told him, I said, why did you never tell me this? He said, we never asked. I didn't. It never came up ever, 29 years. And now it's been 30 years, but it was in between the two houses. Another thing, there was no way for this thing to have gone in between the two houses without cutting through one of the houses. Of course, there's a vacant house back there. But it's weird. My dog is growling. What the heck are they growling about? That's weird. So they're talking about it, and the dogs are growling. Mm-hmm. Stop. It's freaking me out. Anyways, this thing, I believe, may have been metaphysical because, when we talked about it one day, and this was after my friend's mother had died back in 2011, and she was like my spiritual mom. I mean, we were very close. We think that this thing, we've talked about it multiple times. Like, how did it get from the other side of that street through that house in between the two houses where we were at? And my friend, of course, now being a preacher, and his mother always said it was Diablo, it was a Diablo, it was a devil, he thought it was a demonic entity. And now, I mean, I thought always that it was flesh and blood, but then when his brother said something about it having black vapor on his neck, I was like, I don't know. That part right there is, we were driving home and I told Anthony, I was like, I've never heard nobody say that, was never brought up.
That's taking it to another level now. Now, what you're talking about, is that the werewolf that you're talking about that you saw?
Yeah, if you want to call it that. I mean, the dog man, once my brother got out of the Army and he came to live with me back in 97, I think the years run together. I was working in the nightclub at that time, and I was the head of security, and I had been there for about I think 10, 11 months, not quite a year. And so he showed up, and he's like, "Hey, brother," he's my half brother. He's like, "I need a place to stay." I said, "Sure, absolutely." We didn't really grow up together, for the most part, but we knew each other very well, and so he came to stay with me, and he was, I guess it's in the genes. He's a fighter, and he's always doing stuff and whatever. So we just clicked. And it had a lot of the same interests, and I began to tell him one night about what I had seen, and he said, "That's a dog man." And I had never heard that term before, and I was like, "What the heck is a dog man?" He said, "It's a Michigan thing." He's like, "I didn't know you guys had it down here," and I said, "Yeah, but then nobody down here in Texas, nobody, like not one single person, was calling it a dog man. The white people would call it the werewolf, and they're predominantly Czech and German descended people that lived in my hometown. There's very few Anglo; it's mostly German and Czech, and they called it werewolf, or they said it came from the old country, that it was something that had followed, that had been there since the settlers had come, that it came with the Europeans. Well, the black people claimed that it was a haint. One of my friends, Theo, that I hung out with when I was a kid, we'd go down to the creeks and we'd go looking for crawdads. And I believe that I had an encounter with one of or maybe two of these things before I ever had when I was 15. This is when I was 11. And I don't know that this is what it was. I just know that his granny, she used to dip Levi Garrett's snuff. She'd put that powdery stuff in her mouth, sit there on the porch, and she'd be like, "Y'all youngsters gonna go eat by going out down there by that holler. Y'all gonna go down there and someone gonna grab." She talked just like that. And she'd always tell me, y'all are just little babies. You're going to be a snack for them things. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, the haints go down there. They look like wolves, big old wolves. They'll eat you. And I always thought, these people are out of their freaking minds, So I'm down there at 11-year-old and we're playing in the creek. It was me, Theo, my friend Randy. And we were looking for tadpoles, and crawdads out of the creek. And we heard this loud, noise, like crunching noise. And I heard a pop, 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 like if somebody was popping their knuckles really loud. And I've never heard that in conjunction with seeing anything. That's all that happened. We just heard that. So we all got up. We had a little pail with the crawdads, and then the pail for the little tadpoles. We just dropped them, and we all just took off running. Now, his granny had told us if it ever happens and the creek is shallow, run through the creek. Don't run up the hill because they'll track you. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we did. And then we got to the hill about where we could run across the field, and we got back to his house, and we started screaming and crying. There was something in the woods, you know. And his granny was like, "I done told y'all that these haints out there, they look like wolves, and they're gonna eat you." And I'm not playing. And so she told Theo, she said, "Next time you go down that holler, you go down that way to that creek." She's like, "I'm gonna take a strap to you," and she told him straight up, you know. And he was just like, "All right, well, we won't go down there no more." And of course, we did. It took a while for me to go back, but I would, you know, my friends were like, "What, are you scared? What, are you scared?" And you're like, "No, I'm not scared. I was scared to death, but I did it."
He gave you good info though, Josh, going through the water. They can't track your scent that way. As long as, they don't have eyes on you, they're going to lose the scent in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good. Now listen, when you're 11, 15, 17, how tall do you think the creatures that you saw?
I didn't see it when I was 11, because I don't know what it was. I heard it, and then there was another time where I heard the snapping and crunching of bone on the job site that I was on. That was in 2017. And I was on the phone with one of my friends. She's a chiropractor. I was on the phone with her husband, who's a good friend of mine, and we were talking. And in the middle of the conversation, I see this weird-looking, grayish, wispy-looking thing like leaned over one of the trash bins, and it looked like it was digging in there. And I was like, "You're not going to believe there's something weird on my job site." So I don't understand why I did this, but I left my flashlight, my weapon, and my phone in the truck and decided to just start walking over there towards it. Like
I've done it too, brother.
Yeah, and then I get down there, and then it's around the back of the building, and it's pitch dark, and I can't see, and I don't know what I should do. Should I run back and try to? And then when you come back, it's gone. And it wouldn't have mattered. You would go take a picture, and it was so dark, but you could see the image of something, you know, moving. It was tall, skinny, and gray.
Right.
And I heard like a crunching, like a popping noise. Like I can take my hand and go like that with my knuckles and pop them. That's what it sounded like, but loud.
Right.
And then it would be so loud.
The canine variant ones, their knees are like a German Shepherd's, and they're popping when they're standing up straight. So that's most likely what you saw, unless it was some sort of a skinwalker.
Very skinny, gray. I couldn't make it out in the dark, but I've never called that my dogman encounter because I couldn't make out what it was, and I don't want to be a liar. So I just was like, I don't know what that is. I can't tell you, you know. And so I just, you know, when I went around the corner, that thing went around the corner of this, or it went around the side of the Falcon storage box, and when I stepped to the right, it was gone. I mean, like poof, it was gone. So when you look at that situation there, you're thinking, where did it go? I mean, it's almost like it metaphysical or something too, because it was just gone like instantly. I know this last Tuesday on my show, we talked about, I explained that I actually did a drawing. I'm not a good artist, but I drew a little stick figure and I drew a little circle on there, and I showed everybody what a two-dimensional being, how it would be perceived by us. You can see the two-dimensional being on the piece of paper, but the two-dimensional being can't perceive us. In fact, the two-dimensional being can't even perceive the circle. All it perceives is the line. So if you take that off of the paper and give it, you know, another dimension, it becomes a three-dimensional being, which would be us. So if a creature from a fourth dimension, a higher density dimension, comes into our dimension, you know, the fourth dimension, it's going to be able to perceive us. We can't perceive it unless it shows itself to us. You know what I'm saying? Like the two-dimensional being never have any, it will never understand or comprehend our world, three-dimensional world, because it has no concept of that, and it doesn't exist within that, the ability to ascend to our world. Just like we can go to the fourth dimension and see these things, they can see us. Now in the Hadith, in the Muslim tradition, I'm not Muslim, but they do say something that's very pertinent to this. They say that they exist a right angle from us, which is weird how they describe that these dimensions, these beings, these jinn, or whatever you want to call them, that they can actually, they see us, we don't see them. And the word actually means hidden, like hidden ones. So they're hidden from us because they're on a higher vibrational plane than we are. And everybody thinks it's some sort of weird, mystical, magical science. It's really not. It's just reality. If you look at Nietzsche, the scientist, he talks about how these 11 different dimensions, you know, the string theory, And I really subscribe to that. I think that's very, very, very pertinent. I mean, it's what we're talking about. And I think that that's what could be happening. A fourth dimensional being entering our world would be so hard to perceive, because I've gotten stories, ghost stories, and people that send me stories where an arm, okay, all they see is an arm and it chokes them. This guy has had a horrifying experience. Right. And I read this story, I think it was in like Fate magazine or something. And all he saw was an arm choking him. And you're going like, where's the rest of the body at? Well, you can't perceive it because it's not showing you. All it's showing you is that. That's all you can see. And so it would be like a hand going into the two dimension and messing with the two-dimensional people. And they're going like, what is this weird magic that's happening? Why are we being, because they don't perceive the third dimension, just like we don't perceive the fourth dimension. And I've had people tell me over and over again, in a couple of weeks, I'll have a guest on these two sisters that had a bunch of ghost stuff happen, but they also had a bunch of Bigfoot stuff happen. When everybody's going like, well, how do those two things go together? Well, it's very simple. If these things are able to move in and out of a different reality, it's nothing to them. That's just nature to them. That's natural, you know? And I'm not saying that that's what they all are now. What I think, and I've had conversations with Linda Godfrey about this, she had said that she believes that maybe when they come to our world, she told me this personally, and I think she said it on my show too, that when they come into our world and they stay for an extended period of time, well, they have to follow the rules and the laws of the third dimension. They have to eat, they have to sleep. And people say, well, that doesn't make any sense if they're flesh and blood. Yeah, they're temporarily flesh and blood. But let me tell you something. Okay, I've been leaving my body since I was a little kid. And in fact, another thing happened when I was 11, the first time I ever left my body, and I was cognizant of it, and I had another consciousness. And people can believe me or they can think I'm full of crap. I'm just being honest. When I leave my body, and the first time I noticed like the silver cord that people talk about, it was connected to my body and I was just floating all over the place. You are now in their world and you were able to perceive their world and you are a part of that world. And now you understand the spiritual aspect of it. So if you are in the spirit realm, you have to now abide by the laws of that dimension.
Right.
Whereas when they come into our world, they have to abide by the laws of physics in our dimension. But they can still move in and out of the other dimension because they know how to. And it's not even necessarily something that they have to be, it's just something they can easily do. It's just like, it's just a part of who they are.
Well, John, out of body experiences, there's thousands upon thousands of documentation on that. So that's not so odd, that it happened to you actually. And I'm just equating, well, quantum physics has said that there's 11 dimensions also. And through my research that I've done, and it's well over 1,000 different cases at this point, Dogman, Sasquatch, even Mothman, just to name a few cryptids, they evidently go in and out of portals, maybe from one dimension to another dimension, which is like where they say, where the footprint ends, maybe that's how the footprint in the middle of a field, just suddenly the body is not there anymore. So what you're saying, actually does coincide, putting together all that information, which is really, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of documentation on that.
I started out as a straight flesh and blood guy myself, and after my first Sasquatch encounter, but over the course of 17 years, so much weird stuff happened that I could not make sense of. Finally, over the last couple of years, this has been my wife. She's big into quantum, physics and paranormal investigator stuff. She kind of swayed me into this direction, and it seemed like every time I had a theory, something would happen that would throw it out the window.
Yeah,
Jeremiah, you're like a magnet for all that stuff that happens. So I'm telling you, you're like
God,
it's amazing all the stuff that's happened to you in the last 6 months.
I gotta send Josh those videos after.
Yeah, the ones you sent today. Yeah, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Just to backpedal a little bit, Josh, were you always a big kid? I mean, were you born about, larger than normal and about 12 pounds?
I was 9 pounds 12 ounces when I was born. Well, I was big, but
not
I was
small.
no. But I spent like years being a small, sickly little kid until about 5th grade, and then in 5th grade I got really fat. So I don't know what happened, and then after 5th grade, until about probably 8th or 9th grade, probably middle school, I started to lose, because I played ball, stuff like that, and then in 9th grade. I just from my 8th grade year to my 9th grade year, I just shot up real tall, and I lost all that excess fat. I didn't have it for years until I was about 30, and I started gaining weight because I was working all the time and I was starting my business, and just it was just constantly, it was just work, and I think I was like 32 or something, when I started, and then I just from that point on, I just was heavy. And then a few years ago, I just said, you know what, I'm tired of being heavy. I'm going to lose this weight. So I just decided to drop 100 pounds.
Wow.
And so, I dropped over 100 pounds. And so, and through training, went back to doing my training and lifting and doing things like that. And I still do that. That's almost like another job for me. Doing this has become like a second job. My wife calls it my jobby. It's like a hobby that turned into a job. And now I got that. And then I got the training, which I was doing today, and I was doing some MMA, boxing, and I lift weights all the time. I always lift, So I'm big. I'm 6'4". I'm 350 pounds, and I'm pretty quick. I'm pretty agile for a big guy. People are shocked when they see me.
You're a wrestler, right?
I wrestled. Yeah, I wrestled some. I did Samba. I did Roman Greco. Yeah, but I was a boxer though. I'm a headhunter. I love to punch people in the head. That was always my thing.
I did a lot of Muay Thai stuff too.
Yeah,
I love kickboxing. It's
to be a well-rounded fighter, you have to do both. You got to do like me. For me, the Japanese jiu-jitsu and the wrestling that lays the groundwork for your ground game, and then the boxing and the kickboxing is what gives you your stand-up. And my shins are a testament to how many times I've.
Oh yeah, same. Minor cows. You take a whack a baseball bat over them, and they're beating up.
300 pounds though, that was a problem. So. You can't get below 300 because of the weight limits. It's always been a problem. I've just always been too heavy.
Yeah, we definitely can't get you in here to fight anybody, because you just can't get down to the 265 limit.
No, I would be like skin and bones if I did that. I don't know how I could do it.
You'd be totally ripped at your height and muscle.
Yeah, I'd have to lose some muscle too, though, to get down like that. And I did when I lost that 130 pounds. I lost a bunch of muscle, and then I had to build it back up. And I got weaker. I'd go in the gym, and I wasn't hitting like I could. I just did a video the other day, and like I know you've probably seen it, Nick. I was lifting 630 pounds. And people are just like, why are you showing off? Whatever. Well, because people talking trash think I'm making this up. I'm not making this up. I mean,
you're showing off. You're in there to work out for yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
you need to do 360 or 460 or whatever, or 600. It doesn't matter. It's for yourself.
Absolutely.
You can't back the weights down just because they think, oh, you're showing off. No, you're in there for yourself. You're not busting your tail for anybody else. Like I switched from Gold's Gym to my garage gym, which I have 3,000 pounds of weights in there and equipment. I lift for myself. I put the door up. It's 92 degrees in there. I don't care what anybody says. I'm in there lifting for me because I want to feel the way I want to feel. And I really don't care what anybody else thinks. That's just how it's got to be. You can't be doing it for somebody else. Otherwise, you're going to stop doing it after a while.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Simple. I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I've been 11. And then it's gone even further than that, in later life, because a fight's not a fight when it gets down to the street, for life and death thing. People don't understand that.
No, they don't.
You're still standing in front of me after 6 seconds. You are damn well skilled. You are really skilled, because I'm going out to put you down, and I won't discuss how, but I'm there not to be there anymore. I'm there to put you down and leave. That's it. Yep. Because you're going to try to kill me. I don't want to have that happen. People just don't understand that when they talk trash.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, and a real fight, out and about is not like the UFC. It's not like a boxing.
No.
That's rules. That's
It's
rules.
quick and brutal, and for me anyway, it's quick, brutal, and it's over. I mean, if somebody's hurt really bad, it's usually 99.9% of the time it's not me. So
yeah,
I was stabbed.
I was stabbed bouncing.
I think not. Hopefully not. I was out to dinner today, and I came across this Russian guy. He was about your size, Josh, maybe bigger, but I would say he was about 295. My God, his arms were about the size of my thighs. And I looked at him and I said, "You did Sambo, right?" And he looked at me like, "How the hell would you know that?" And he did.
Sambo.
The guy was a big Sambo guy. I'm going to try to hook up with him because he's only a town away, but he is a monster. He is a monster. And I tell you, Josh, I can't wait to come down and, do some stuff with you down in Austin.
Yeah.
That'll be fantastic. I mean, and I definitely want to see those spots you got down there, that church, the graveyard and all that stuff at nighttime, at 1 a.m. Yes. Because those are the times when you're going to see things actually. And
I would suggest coming in October because it'll be cooler. Because you never know. It's not hot really. It hadn't been that hot this summer so far. We've been fortunate, but September is like just baby August basically, and on Texas, and it's a hot oven, dude. So
I've got Mediterranean blood. The heat doesn't bother me. I love it. The hotter it is, the better it is.
What was that?
Poor Gary.
I don't think my half Mohawk, half Scandinavian blood could take that kind of heat.
Wow.
I want how Josh is keeping I guess he's keeping all the heat up here in Oklahoma because we're burning our asses off.
I tell you what, it was hot here today, believe it or not. It's the hottest day we had yet.
Where you at,
up in the Adirondacks.
Oh, the Adirondacks.
New York State, all the way up there.
Yeah, upstate, yeah. There's a lot of weird stuff up there too, man. Let me tell you. All that area, that's all creepy stuff, dude.
Yep. Oh yeah.
He's had some crazy stuff going on up there. And I just got a report on Monday in Massachusetts. 16 people, and they were interviewed by one of my admins. 16 people she interviewed. They all had a similar story. Saw a dog man come out of a wood line and stand there for more than 30 seconds.
Wow.
They heard the knee popping and everything. I asked her if I could interview 3 of the ladies, and one of the ladies is a secretary to the governor. Now, these people are bullshitting. Man, it's a mass bullshit. But I want to interview just 3 people, and I want to see. But as far as where Jeremiah is, Josh, he's had some high strangeness go on over there for the longest time. And Jeremiah, if you remember going back a few months, I had that one from Highland, New York. And then I had the case from, with the lady with the Squatch 15-footer with the pictures we saw with the eyes. And then I had one down in Northwest Jersey. And if anybody believes about ley lines, I'm telling you, I mapped it from you down the highway down to Northwest New Jersey. It was a straight line, Josh. It was amazing. It was freaking amazing. All the craziness that's went on. Things coming out. But something else I wanted to mention to Josh while he's on is that man you're looking at right there, Jeremiah. He's going to be coming with me to LBL. I lost one of my guys that's supposed to be coming, and Jeremiah graciously accepted, so he's going to be coming with me.
Who'd you lose?
Great. It's going to be great because I lost the guy we call Nomad. Personal problems, personal situation going on, and I told him family first. Family, your job, and then our cryptozoology and stuff second. I mean third rather, but I had to let him go. But I wanted to get Gary to come and Jeremiah, and Gary's too busy. But Jeremiah and I are going to have hours upon hours to discuss everything, which is going to be great.
No, yeah, I can't wait.
I wish we had a 10-hour video that we could just film the whole thing.
I told you, I'll bring my camera.
It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, can't wait.
You haven't decided exactly when that's going to happen?
Yes, I didn't want to put it out for people, Josh. Only I'll tell you off the air, but I don't want to put it out because I've had well over 24 people invite themselves, and I can't protect everybody.
Yeah, that's ballsy.
They're mucking it up. And also, I have Coast to Coast AM radio that wants to come out and do a few hours with us. And then I have another channel that wants to come out there and do some filming. And I just can't have everybody running around, and I won't be able to protect everybody. If, not just from cryptids. You don't know what's going to be out there. A bear, coyote, mountain lion, whatever.
Yeah.
I just can't protect everybody. And if somebody gets injured, they're going to, I feel really bad.
Nick, we are talking about the LBL here. There's things out there meaner than the mountain lions and tigers and bears.
I know, but
oh my!
As you know, Gary, and you named me the Batman of cryptozoology. We're all going to be very well armed and ready. So to protect ourselves and get back. But I have a lot of people to protect.
Showing that it's charging, but hold on one second, guys. It's showing it's charging, but it's not actually.
Probably the charger doesn't have enough wattage.
Yeah, something's going on here. I don't know. It's weird because it was charging.
I got a question for you myself.
Started talking about that dogman stuff. Some weird stuff started happening. So. It's a very weird subject, man, and people don't get that there is more to it than. I don't think that people really understand what we're dealing with. Speaking of the LBL. And I admitted this, when all that stuff with that Roger, when Roger was going all that stuff, there was a story that I'd gotten out of that LBL of these, I don't know, I guess you would call them like devil monkeys. That's what me and Ryan Tremblay were coining the term.
Right.
We didn't know whether we should call them that or.
That would be an accurate description.
Mm-hmm. And there was like a little horde of them that attacked some people in a truck, and they ran them out of there. And when the people were telling the story, I kind of dismissed it, because when I ended up talking to their friend, and they said, "Oh, our friend can verify this." The friend just seemed like he was. When I spoke to the guy, he sounded like he wasn't sober. And I mean, people that might, I've been on the phone with researchers and authors, and you can hear the ice drink, they're taking a drink, whatever.
Right.
But this guy was like, "Yeah, man, I saw it was crazy." I'm like, yeah, "Okay, all right, yeah, whatever." So this was their guy to back up their story, and I'm like, "Okay, well, when you get clean and sober, let me know, And then so I went back to them and I said, I tried talking to that guy, and he just sounded like he was, just south of coherent, and so they were like, "Oh yeah, well he does this," and I'm like, "Well, I can't, how is that guy the credible witness to what you saw? And were you guys imbibing that night?" And yeah, we were drinking, and you might drink a little bit. Then I just kind of said, "Well, it's kind of a fantastical story," and then you were drinking, but then hearing descriptions of creatures that people are getting from the LBL, I'm going like, okay. These were youngsters, in the early 20s who experienced this, and I didn't really take it seriously. Didn't know a whole lot about the LBL, and I kind of wrote it off, and I just deleted the emails. I was like, whatever, instead of filing it away like I should have, like a responsible researcher. And I kicked myself because I've lost. I don't know how to get in touch with people. I have no idea. They probably just thought, well, that guy's a jerk. He didn't believe us and whatever. But looking back on it now, I think that they may have been being truthful. I just their friend just happened to be somebody who wasn't always sober, and I just kind of was like, I don't have time. Right. LBL wasn't something that was on my mind, and of course Nick was part of that whole saga that came. When we did the whole live streams every week, it was the LBL. The first episode I did with that was just me talking about the story that had been put out there by this gentleman on the Cryptid Studies Institute. And then Jody reached out and said, "Hey, I want to come on and tell what I think happened." So I said, "Sure, me and Jody are friends. I'm have ties with NADP." I said, "Sure, come on." So he talked, and then Johnny Henderson reached out and said, "I'd like a chance for us to tell our side." So then he came on, and then after that, Roger came on, and then it was like Roger and Nick kind of went back and forth, and then we all talked, and and then Barton Nunley got there involved, and we were, it ended up going on for several weeks. It was the whole the LBL saga, And that was kind of my introduction to all that, because I had heard, bits and pieces here and there. And the narrative, seemed to have kind of, everybody was fighting for the narrative. Well, is it this? Is it that? And
yeah. And so I'm curious about, is it, a dog man, or is it a type of extremely aggressive Sasquatch that,
what if that, above?
Well,
true.
On the Whisper to a Scream, on the podcast Whisper to a Scream, that's Ryan's show. We actually, let me try to get that. I'm using my phone here, which I didn't set up my laptop, which I should have. But when we did a Whisper to a Scream, we did the Gugly. And me and Tremblay, and then we did the Genoskwa, and those are two different species of Bigfoot, and they're both extremely aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
Knucklehead the other day who was like, I don't believe that they'll hurt you. And I'm like, okay, what's your opinion? Okay. Any animal could be nice. I have a friend right here in Texas. He lives in more West Texas, but it's kind of like on the verge of between Central and West Texas, because Texas is so big, it's divided up north, south, east, and west. And then you have Panhandle, which isn't necessarily west, it's Panhandle. This guy lives like west, more kind of like north, central, west, whatever. But he has a complete menagerie of animals in his. He has a whole zoo, and if you go with him, he's got a cougar, and you can pet it, you can touch it, you can play with it, you can do the lemurs, whatever. You can play with them, you can touch them. But what would happen if you went out there by yourself and he went with you? Okay. These animals rip you apart, and this guy's talking about, well, they're just animals, and you don't mess with them; they don't mess with you. When I was a kid, I went under the water when I was at the coast in Port Aransas here in Texas. I like to go there every year too. I saw a shark, and it was like it went right in front of me, and it was like, whoa, that is a shark. And I was a little kid, probably 8 years old, and I didn't touch it. I moved my hand back, and I saw the gills and everything. I don't exactly know how big it was. It was large to me because I was a little kid, because, and I had opened my eyes under the water because I thought that I saw something, and it was probably up, the water was up to my chest, of course I was a little kid, and we were out pretty far, and I saw this shark. And so I just booked it back. I've always been a strong swimmer, and I just booked it right back from shore. And it freaked me out. So for a couple of years, I didn't get back in the water, even though it probably wasn't hungry. It was probably just there. And since then, I've been in the water many times, and I'm sure there's sharks around you at all times. They're not biting you because they're not hungry.
Right.
So a
lot of the times when they bite on you, it's not what they want. So they
they let go.
They let go.
But I mean,
you do hear people losing their arms, but most of the time they'll let go.
You lose your arm, and then you lose your leg, and of course it's Shark Week, and there's that guy from Australia who was a Navy diver, for Australia. A bull shark got a hold of him.
No.
During a training exercise, he lost his arm and his leg, and now he's on Shark Week like every year. But it's crazy because a buddy of mine got upended off of his surfboard by an orca, by a killer whale.
Whoa. Really?
Oh. It did not bite him. It did not attack him. It just knocked him completely 30 feet up into the air. And he came down, and looking down as he came down, he saw what it was, and he thought, well, I'm dead. This thing's going to kill me. But it didn't kill him. But the interesting thing, about 2 days later, a great white washed up on the shore, and it had been killed. Now, this was back in the early 90s, and he was telling me this story, and he said that he thought that killer whale killed that great white.
Most likely that orca did, yeah.
Yeah, they're more than capable. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's footage of them doing it now. The way they do it is crazy too. In fact, they destroyed the entire, like in the Horn of Africa in South Africa. There was an entire group of great whites. It was a stronghold for these great whites, and they were known to jump up out of the water and all this. And two male rogue orcas went in there and just decimated those great whites. And they were finding great whites on the shore dead like every day. And eventually they just left. Those great whites left. So they're not the apex predator on Earth. The killer whale is.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that can stop it, nothing that can kill it. And when they work together, they can destroy anything. And so my friend was very lucky that thing wasn't interested in him, but that it did kill a great white. So he always tells that story. He always says, "Hey, that's what happened to me," and that's the weird thing that happened to him. But point being, though, that these are wild animals. It's just the zoo.
Yeah.
And when you go into the ocean, you're running the risk of getting attacked or stung by a jellyfish, which happened to my wife the last time we went last year.
No.
And I had to take her 28 miles into Corpus because that's the nearest hospital, which is really ridiculous. And her foot swelled up so bad, they said if we wouldn't have got there in time, that it would have split open. And I had to drive. I'd been at my friend's club. He has a very large, beautiful nightclub there. If you ever go to Port Aransas, his name's Tommy, and worked with him for years. And he's got a club there called Treasure Island, and we were there drinking all night. And my wife says my foot's gotten worse because we were walking along the beach at night, and and just kicking the water, and kind of having a romantic walk. And then she says, "I think something bit me."
Yeah,
so
the jellyfish come out.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, I'm having to drive not sober to the nearest hospital facility, and Port Aransas, they're speed traps. They're like sitting in those dunes, those cops, every few feet. There's like, and I'm driving, and one of them goes behind me, and I'm going like, oh, God, and then they're gonna pull me over, and then my wife is. I wouldn't be driving like that if it wasn't, So I was like, good God, I hate that I had to drive like that. I don't know how sober or unsober I was, but I was driving fine, but who knows what this guy's going to say. And luckily he veered off to go do whatever because it was the weekend and there was a bunch of people partying on the beaches all over the place. So we had to drive all the way into Corpus, almost 30 miles to the hospital. And then they said, jellyfish. And they took care of her, but, so, anything can happen when you go into the water, just like anything can happen when you go into the woods. And
absolutely.
It's not the zoo, people think, oh, well, I've been in the woods a whole bunch and there's people that listen, Dana Holyfield's been on my show, and of course the Honey Island Swamp Monster and all that. Her uncle or her grandfather, Holland Ford, he's got that 8mm footage of the Honey Island Swamp Monster. His buddy, was determined he was going to find the Honey Island Swamp Monster, and ultimately he went missing. They never found him. So he may have found it.
Makes you wonder,
Yeah.
Hey, just for future reference, jellyfish bites, rubbing alcohol. Just keep applying it. That does kill the poison in there. My dad and I, years and years ago, were out scuba diving down off the Jersey Shore, and we got bit by some red jellyfish, and we didn't even know it. Our legs swelled up to the size of our thighs, and luckily my dad, being an old Navy diver, knew what the remedy was for that, and we just soaked it overnight, and the legs went down gradually, but that does take the poison out. And
never been stung, thank God. Knock on wood.
Oh man, it's not something you want. Hey, getting back to the those great whites and the orcas, I have my BA in zoology, and I'm going for a master's now. And part of the study is, underwater creatures. And the thing about the great white shark, they're not team players, Josh. But the orcas, boy, are they team players.
They hunt like a pack of wolves.
You can get 2 or 6 of them together. They're all going to do the same thing, and they're going to protect each other's 6. Whereas a great white, they're all for themselves. They get a whale that's been killed. They're in there just kill, biting the whale and get away with their chunk. They're not going to help their fellow sharks. In fact, they're going to eat their fellow sharks. But the orcas, for some reason, they work together. These guys,
the million brains.
That's amazing, though. But boy, your guy getting hit by that surfboard, getting knocked by that thing. Jeez.
I watched an idiot get launched 30 feet in the air by a moose, a big bull moose.
Really?
People were pulled over on the side of the road filming it. It was in the water, eating lilies and stuff. And he was a mature bull, probably 1,600 pounds. Wow. And guy comes paddling over on his kayak. Here, moosey. Here, moosey.
Oh, that's real good.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm about to watch this guy get killed.
What happened to him? Anything?
Well, he gets about 5 feet away from that giant set of antlers, and that moose stuck its head in the water under the front end of the kayak and grabbed his neck and launched the sky along with the kayak about 30 feet in the air and out of the way, stuck his head back in the water and started eating those lilies again.
You see, it's what I tell people all the time. Oh, I'm going in there by myself, and I got my flashlight on my cell phone, and I got my little bottle of water. I said, well, what happens if you meet up with something? Maybe you don't see Sasquatch or Dogman, but you see a mountain lion or a bear or a coyote, even for that matter. What is your game plan after that? They're like, they can't answer me. And people about that moose, people think of a moose as Santa Claus's reindeer. Oh, they're cuddly, animal, but a moose is gigantic.
Moose kill people.
Yeah,
they do.
They are dangerous. You stay away from those things.
You stay the hell, especially a mama with a calf. You stay the hell away. You stay right away from them.
Like any female animal with her calf cubs or whatever, you go near them, see what happens.
You're gonna kill you.
We got deer all over the place. I mean, we got blacktail, whitetail, we got mule deer. They're everywhere, and
deer will kill you.
Bucks. The bucks will literally charge people and stab them. I mean, this isn't a joke. I mean,
sure.
We got wild hogs out here that just get up to 15 pounds. I kid you not. They're just grotesque beasts. People I see them jogging along down these trails. Me and my wife, we're driving. There's this one drive. I'll take you there, Nick, when you come. It's very beautiful, and there's like little mini waterfalls all the way down. And it's on Spicewood Springs. And we were driving through there, me and my wife, and we saw this huge herd of hogs. And there was probably 20 of them, and the biggest ones were probably, I would say, 600-700 pounds.
Oh my God!
And right there on that trail, there's people doing their little jogging, walking their little dogs, and you're going like that. They're right there in the woods, they will attack people. People get attacked, and seeing Austin is real good about. Oh, it's so safe here. It's so don't go downtown, because downtown they're shooting every week downtown or stabbing. My buddy Tank works down there, and my friend Squid and my friend Deuce, they all work down there. My friend Bling still works down there. My friend Brent, they're all down there, and they're just it's a nightmare. It's just it's horrific what's going on down there, because we have this it's political, it's the city council and the mayor and whatever. They've allowed these people to just camp and wherever, and the homeless people are just everywhere. And then there's just, it's like the Wild West. It's all over again. Like back in the 90s when I was down there in the late 90s to early 2000s or the mid 2000s, it was like the Wild West. Now it's become that way again. And I saw the other day that downtown Austin is the most dangerous place in Texas right now.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. We saw a lot of stuff going on during the protests that was just beyond the pale. It was pretty.
The thing you mentioned about the hogs, the wild boar and wild pigs out there. People think, oh, they're cute little animals. They don't realize they can go 600, 700, 800 pounds. These wild boar, maybe more, and they don't understand that pigs, just a regular pig, will eat anything.
Anything.
They'll eat anything. I mean, if you put a dead body into their slop over there, they're going to eat it. People don't understand these things will attack. Start studying things, people. I mean, stop being your head in the cell phone and in the cloud, and understand nature and what is going on. I mean, our ancestors knew all this stuff, and I'm not talking too far back either.
No, and they're rolling over in their graves right now.
Yeah, I mean, just go back into the 60s and, they were educated. They knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Just like I was talking to a bunch of people today about, we had espresso after dinner. And I said, my grandmother used to give a little bit of espresso, my Italian grandmother, to all the kids, the 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old kids. And my one aunt, who was married to my father's brother, she was a Brit. She was reaming over about how bad that was. My grandmother shouldn't do that. Well, see, the older people knew that just a little bit of that espresso is not going to put a jet engine in the little kids. It's going to help digestion because they ate a ton of food. And every one of the kids fell asleep after that. So you see, I'm just getting back to what people used to know. You're going to go out in the woods, know what you're doing, please. I mean, all these people think they're such high-end investigators. And I'm talking about in the NADP too. You wouldn't believe how many of them say that. Oh, yeah, this and that. And I'm like, I try to go out there prepared. I can't be prepared for everything, but at least I'm prepared. I mean, how many of these people, which can tell everybody, look up. I mean, you know how high a mountain lion can jump? They could jump about 14 feet up. Your cat in your own house can jump about 4.5 feet. What do you think a mountain lion with all that muscle can do?
And then 20 feet out.
Yeah, a mountain lion can drag a 140-pound deer up a tree.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean, they're super strong.
Got a question for you. Is there a way to edit this? Because I got to go hit the head real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jeremiah,
you could edit it out, but me saying that. So I go.
Well, yeah. That's the reason we edit.
All right, let me use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Gary, I wish to God you can come with us, man. I want a ranger with me too. I mean, we're good.
Any other time, I would try my damnedest, but that's real special. You know that.
Man, I wish you could have been there. But I got Jeremiah. Man, we are going to have a blast.
I can't friggin'
Your wife
wait.
is okay with this, though?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank her. Thank her for me, please.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy that you're coming. I mean, Gary, I did want you there too, man.
Well, when you go to Austin, let me know, and we'll try our damnedest to meet y'all down there. And
what about in 2022, Alaska? What about that, guys? That would be some. Now, listen, D.A. Roberts, the author. I wish you guys would have him on your show. I mean, he's really. He is the. You know who Tom?
Do you know him personally?
I know him personally. We talk like 3-4 times a week. We message all the time. Yeah, I'm on a lot of his shows.
Okay.
But D.A. Roberts, he's not a field investigator, but he is a researcher beyond. I mean, he's like Tom Clancy.
Yes.
So he used to investigate everything before he puts it in his books. I'm telling you, D.A. Roberts investigates everything. He actually goes there. You know, just like that guy Greavy. He writes the Gray Man books. He goes to Germany. He goes to Thailand. He goes all over the place to check things out. And he takes the training and does. I mean, it's realistic. And the stuff D.A. Roberts does is realistic. In fact, he's got a story. I won't spoil it, but he and his buddy Steve, who lives down the street from him, were investigating an area that he's going to write about, or he did write about. And something happened. I won't say it now, just in case it goes, we go live with it. But I'm telling you, please, Jeremiah, get in contact and have him on the show. It's phenomenal. Tell him I suggested it, and I'd like to be on with him because I want to bring out a lot of things. A lot of it's funny too about what happened on that one night, but it's really, really good.
Okay, I'm back.
He's back.
He's back.
Hey, I'm just looking at the reports here. The ocean just went up a half an inch. I wonder why. You must have really had to go, Josh.
Yeah,
I just got that.
Yeah, I was going like, are you in the global warming now? What's going on?
Yeah. This is him, 107 Mutuals, Josh Turner and Nick Valente.
Yeah, Jeremiah, when we first started corresponding and you started your group, I helped you get it started because I thought, man, you seem like such a nice guy, and I was glad to be able to, because you're a nice guy.
I appreciate that, Josh. I have feelings mutual.
Jeremiah and
appreciate that.
Mr. Gary Spikes over there, two really, really, really good guys. And I mean from the heart, two good guys. I've met a lot of nice people in cryptozoology and even ufology and the paranormal, but there are those people out there that just are I call them charlatans, Josh.
Yeah.
They're in it for the fame and for the money. Anybody look up charlatans?
In particular, the money. There's some money-hungry people. What I tell people, is, I don't need the money, and that's the beauty of my situation is that I don't do this. I don't need it for the money. I mean, I have two jobs pretty much, training and then doing the security thing, and I do well. When you come down here, Nick, you'll see. I'm a very busy guy, and I'll take you to my studio, And I'll show you my studio, my office, and I actually stay there rent free because the guy's a good friend of mine and he's my mortgage broker.
Nice.
Really nice guy. We're very tight. We're a family down here. We're a unit, and all my guys from the old days, you know, somebody was kind of bagging on us about our nicknames and things like that, and I was like, you wouldn't be saying that if you knew, you know, the old days and you were here to see it, you know.
Times with these guys,
the reason why we call people names they do, like Diablo, Scorpion, Squid, you know, those aren't just for fun. It's not just a fun little club. Those are a club of fighters.
You're right.
And I'm a real person, and I hate some of these phony baloney people out there that they're just doing it because they either want to be noticed or they want or pick up chicks or whatever it is they're trying to do, or they're trying to make money. And I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it.
Right.
You know, and that's why I do it. And I correspond with as many people as I can, and I try to connect with people as I can and try to hear them out and not pass judgment, you know. And sometimes stories sound really fantastical, but you can't discount it. You know, I made that mistake, like I said, about the LDL. And I realized, like, you know, I would get a story and it would sound kind of weird, and I'd put it in my one-off file. You know, me and Nick Redfern and Ken Gerhardt have all talked about this. They did a lot of talking back and forth with me when I did my Chupacabra episode, and wanted their input about it, you know, and so we were talking about one-offs, you know, and things like that. And you can't discount those things because it might be 10 years down the road and you'll get another story that will be very similar to that one. And you're going like, wow, you know, the gargoyle comes to mind. I talked to this guy who had this encounter with this gargoyle type creature near Dayton, Ohio. And I thought, well, that's a weird story. So I had all these journals, you know, I wrote them down in the journals, and then so I wrote down everything he was telling me, and I just kind of filed it away. And then eventually, once I become more tech savvy, you know, a buddy of mine who's passed away he was my best friend for years. He had PTSD real bad, but he just couldn't shake it. And so he told me, he gave me my first computer, you know, and he said, why don't you take all this stuff and put it in these files, you know? And so I said, okay. So I did. And it took me forever to put them all in there, you know. And so years later, I get another story, and I'm thinking, wow, I've heard this before. This is very similar. What is this? It's the same creature, or a very similar creature, but this happened to a family in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Funny thing is, I mean, the people from Ohio, you know, they were white. The people that happened to in New Mexico, they were Hispanic. You know, it was 20 years apart from each other. But the creature's description was just identical, and you're going like, it's so weird, right? There was a broken chain around its neck. Now, it's so weird. I mean, like, and the average person would have just dismissed that, you know, and said, hey, I'm not gonna, you know. But luckily, I had saved it, you know, and so I knew. And then I had a friend of mine who said he had a weird story to tell. And it wasn't really him. It was some friends of ours that I went to grade school with out in West Texas. And he said, my friend, a mutual friend of ours, he's like, him and his girlfriend and another friend of ours that we grew up with, something really weird happened to him. So I said, okay. I got in touch with them, and they described this creature, you know, this flying gargoyle type creature that matched the description of those other two people. And you're going like, I mean, you know, so when you get three stories and the creature has the same, the head, everything, it's like the head looked like a bulldog. They didn't see a chain, but the other two did, and I just couldn't. I was blown away by that.
You have goat's horns by any chance?
No horns, just the head looked like a dog, you know, like a big bulldog with an elongated snout. And then, and so, you know, when you get the reports of snouts, you go to Dogman, you know, people think, oh, I saw Bigfoot, and they'll tell you, well, tell me about your Bigfoot sighting. They'll start describing a werewolf, and you're going like, okay, that's not a Bigfoot, that's something else. Right. This thing was like a Dogman with wings, and it just sounds so weird. But the feet, the toes had these three, like it was like three toes. Right. You know, and only one of them saw that. The one in Alamo, I think it was either the one in Ohio, the one in New Mexico saw that. And then my friends in Haskell, Texas saw the other. Now, here's another thing about Haskell, Texas. Somebody was in my chat the other day, and they were talking about seeing a werewolf run across the road. And I did a show on DER, on Dogman Encounters. I've been on it 12 times, unfortunately. But so I did a story on there about this creature that this guy saw in Lake Stamford, which is in between Haskell, Texas, and Stamford, Texas, and they call it the Haskell Rascal. The stories have been around forever about this creature, but I really think it's a type of dog man, like a scrawny-looking but highly aggressive dog man. I mean, aggressive. Like the stories are, they go way back, and this thing attacks people. Like there was a woman that was raking leaves in her yard. I got in touch with her through my friend Nikki. And she said that this thing came loping through on all fours, grabbed it with a hand, which is why she knew this is not a normal wolf-looking creature, you know, and just grabbed her dog and then put it in its mouth and loped off. And so, you know, you got these horrific stories of this creature, you know, and now when we were kids in Halloween, they would talk about the Haskell Rascal. You don't go out and mess with the Haskell Rascal because this thing will get you, you know. And so we were out camping, hanging out, whatever, and the church group. And one of the kids that was there, something grabbed him and tried to pull him up a tree. Now, we as children, and me and my sisters even talked about this later on, we thought this was like a joke. Like we got back to the church, we're like, okay, yeah, they played a joke on us. Well, the older people from the church, you know, they told our parents, but we didn't know that it was real. We thought it was a joke. So years later, we find out, you know, once we're teenagers, my mom was like, no, that happened. The kid got attacked by something and was drug up a tree. And it happened at the camp that we were at. And I was like, wow. So, you know, you're going like, I mean, there's all these legends and stories. Now, the story I did on DER, and I'm going to tell you something, the guy that interviewed was such a pain in the butt to talk to. He was watching like NASCAR or something, and he was yelling at the TV, and he acted like I was really just bothering him and aggravating him. But I wanted to get the story from him, so I endured him screaming at, you know, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jimmy Johnson, whoever was on there. He was screaming at these people on the, you know, and I was like, this was coming toward the end of the race or something. And I'm sitting there listening to this guy, you know, yell. And I don't remember who he was yelling at or whatever. And I was listening to and then he would kind of tell the story, and then he would go back to what he was doing. And I guess he wasn't getting anything out of telling me the story. You know, he wasn't like it was just because I knew his nephew through my friend. And so he told the story, and it was kind of like he was aggravated or something. But it's a pretty crazy story. Him and his friend were on a boat, and they were fishing, and they were in a little cove type area. And this thing jumped. They heard a splash, and they looked, and it was near dusk. And they see this wolf-like creature swimming toward them, and they thought, "What is this?" You know. And so they didn't see it on the shore, the bank, or whatever. And so it was just in the lake. And as it got closer to the boat, then it stands up. And then they realized just how shallow the water was where they were at. And they were like, whoa, because the lake had been low. You know, he goes, we were drinking. You know, he admitted it. He goes, but I wasn't drunk where I didn't know what I was seeing, you know, and we were just really out there just having a good time, you know, and there were three guys out there on their boat, and they started panicking and you know, finally they got the boat started and got away from it, and this thing was literally wading toward them as fast as it could. And was close to getting to the boat, you know. And then he goes, and then that was the end of the story, you know. And he goes, anything else? And I'm like, no, sir, I got your story. Hung up, click. I'm like, okay, goodbye.
What happened? That's what we want to know, you know.
Well, nothing happened. I mean, they got away. I mean, but he described it, though. He said that one side of its face on the upper lip, he said, was like torn off. It was weird. I mean, you know, so what is that? I have no idea, but that's what the guy told me. And you know, and I was pretty tenacious and determined to get, something
happened.
What's going on here?
You're viewing Nick's screen.
Why is that?
I do not know.
At least I can say I'm not the only one that messed up tonight.
No, it just went zip, zip, and I don't know why it's doing this.
So can y'all still hear me?
Yeah.
We definitely.
Yeah, my screen, guys, I gotta fix this somehow. I don't think I was in control of this.
Gremlins, man. We were talking about that on my show on Tuesday.
Damn.
Here we go.
There we go.
Snake though.
I like that flag you got, Jeremiah. That's pretty cool.
Like that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Nate Rudd sent that to me.
Nate Rudd?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he comes on the show with us, but he had other things to, prior obligations tonight. But he sent me that in the mail. Yeah.
That's cool.
I made sure I put it right where I could see it,
I got to send you a PRT shirt, you and Gary both. Give me your address.
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
I will drop that shit.
Jamie,
Josh, I got a quick question for you, and we can edit this out if we need to. Are you still in contact with the three brothers down in West Texas?
Which three brothers would that be in West Texas?
The Hispanic brothers.
Are you talking about the Hernandez?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not in West Texas. They're actually in South Central Texas. Southwest Central time. Yeah, I guess it could be Southwest.
San Angelo area?
Yeah. It's the what?
San Angelo area?
No, that's not. I do have some stories out of San Angelo. And actually that's where my mortgage broker's from. We were just talking about him earlier, but I do have some stories out of that area. I'll tell you something funny, weird about that. That area of West Texas is known, it's inundated with hyena type reports.
That's what I was wondering. The reason I was asking you, because I knew anybody would. I got a report 2 weeks ago from I honestly thought it was maybe an escaped hyena, but it was laughing and had the humped back and the ridges, but it was like at the shoulders was over 4.5 feet tall, and I don't know any
dangerous animal right there.
That big. And I knew if anybody, I thought they was in that area for some reason, but
West Texas, yeah, absolutely. There were some guys, they were roughnecks, they were working out there in the oil fields. I got a couple friends who still work out there in the oil fields in the Permian Basin, Odessa, Midland area.
For a long time, Midland and Odessa myself.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'm a roughneck.
Are you a Texan?
No, my son is. I'm an Okie. I'm from
Okie.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. You're not gonna believe this. We went and ate dinner earlier, me, my wife, and my nephews, and we were talking about Oklahoma because when we came back through there a couple of summers ago, 2 summers ago, we were down there or up there, I should say, and we stopped in Oklahoma City and we went to Bricks, Bricktown and all that. The Mickey Mantle's that. Beautiful. Oklahoma City is awesome. I love it, and everybody. I love Oklahoma people. They're just. We went to the Bone Museum.
Yeah,
in Oklahoma City.
Anthropology. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. It's really cool. They have that 10,000-year-old elk skull there. Mm-hmm. It's freaking crazy, man. And so we went there. We went to a place called Flips, which was like the greatest Italian food I ever had. And I had a ghost encounter there. The waiters told me that it was very haunted, and I thought I saw my waiter walk behind me through those mirrors right there to the right. And you wouldn't think Oklahoma City Italian food, but it was awesome. And because my nephew ordered something at the Cheesecake Factory, he ordered some pasta, and I took a bite of it. And I looked at my wife. I said, "It's not Oklahoma City, but, it's all right." But Oklahoma City is amazing, and I love Okies, man. The only time I don't like Oklahoma is the Red River Shootout. When Texas plays, I'm a diehard Texas guy, and I got to root for. And, there were years where Oklahoma was just kicking all of our butts, and I'm one of those weird guys that roots for Texas teams no matter what. Like most people are an Aggie or a Longhorn. You're not both. I like both. And I'll root for them. And I remember one year, Oklahoma just cleaned our clocks. I mean, they beat down A&M. They beat down Texas Tech. They beat down Baylor. They beat down Texas. And they beat everybody by 20 points. And it was like, good God. And so I really don't like the Sooners, but I like the Cowboys. I like Oklahoma State, all right, but the Sooners have just been a thorn in the side of Texas teams. So,
I'm an OSU alumni, so I'm intimate. OSU. I hate OU.
I do too. I followed the OSU Cowgirls. I was hoping y'all do it. I was watching. I got into the softball College World Series, and I was checking it out. And I was out there working out, and I was up there. It was on TV, and I started following it. And I was hoping that they would pull it off, and I was hoping it'd be a showdown between them and OU, and that OSU would beat them. And I actually kind of like Oklahoma State. I just don't like Oklahoma. I'm not a Switzer fan. I think he was just horrible, and ruined the Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys. Because I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm a Bucks fan too. And they won Super Bowls. I was just elated. I was so over the moon for that. But the only time I don't like Oklahoma, that's it. I love to go to Oklahoma. I go gambling 3 or 4 times a year. I like to go to Choctaw, or maybe Thackerville, but Durant's a cool place, but Durant's got Lake Texoma, and there's a lot of weird stuff out there too. And I was talking.
Thackerville's got Brown Springs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Brown Springs. Yeah. And I was going to tell you that I was talking to. That's another one. And I was talking to a tribal police officer, and I started BSing with him 2 different times when I was at the Choctaw, and he's a Choctaw, native. And we were talking, and they have their own legends of these creatures, and he believes that it's a skinwalker type creature, a medicine man, that's like the spirit of an evil medicine man that haunts Lake Texoma. And I don't know that that's true or not. I mean, that's just what he believes. And I've talked to him 2 different occasions. I've been down there or up there. And Oklahoma has got a lot of weird stuff. That whole Red River area is supposedly haunted as all heck. And,
it is. Well, I tell you what, next time you come up to Thackerville, I'll give you my personal information. You let me know. I'm 30 minutes from Thacker. I'm 30 minutes
awesome.
from.
Yeah, because I was planning on going to WinStar next time, but just been so busy with all the things we got going on.
WinStar is Thackerville.
Yeah, we were planning on going to WinStar next time. Yeah. Because a lot, we had gone to Choctaw, and last time I went up to Choctaw, I did pretty good. I won $3,800. So I was like, yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
I'm 44 minutes. I mean, if you split Choctaw and WinStar right in the middle, right north of Lake Texoma, I'm right there.
Well, those that show, These Woods Are Haunted.
Yeah.
I had an interview. I almost was on that show.
That report at Texoma was my cousin's.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, because I did a spot for them. And funny because today one of my my clients is Topgolf. And we were just there today having a meeting about some issues and stuff. And when I did the show, These Woods Are Haunted, we talked about that. Me and Michael Sheehan, and we talked about, and we did the pre-interview. And I went up to Topgolf because I have to go up there all the time to check in. And so the cameras, they see me that I'm checking on my guards and stuff. And so I was doing the pre-interview with him and the director, and I did the spot. They wanted to pick up the episode of the Church of the Forgotten because it happened out in the middle of nowhere. And so, they interviewed me and Scorpio. And so when I was doing the interview for These Woods Are Haunted, we hear like 3 loud clangs, and I don't know where it came from. It was like it came from nowhere. I don't know where it came from. But then when we went to the studio and we were doing the recording, of course, the director and then of course Michael, they're in their countries. Michael's in Wales or whatever. The other guy, he's in London.
And that's who I spoke to over the phone. Preliminary interview or whatever. Yeah, I think it was he was from London, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, they're Britain, and they were interviewing me, and then when we did the interview in the studio, it was weird because I knew that night that we heard those 3 bangs during the interview at Topgolf. I was on the south end of the building. You're talking about a 65,000 square foot property. Okay, that's a huge property. I mean, you could scream as loud as you want. Nobody's going to hear you if they're on the other side. Well, the guards were on the other side. There were 2 maintenance guys on the property, so they were all on one maintenance guy actually. They were all on the other side of the property, in the area where they clean the balls and stuff. And so it wasn't them. I mean, I don't know who it was, what it was that made that noise. But when we went to the studio, it was off of North Lamar, And they gave me the address, and they had to hire a company, and they couldn't come here because of the COVID, because of the pandemic. So we were doing the camera, and the makeup girl was real nice, you know, and she did my makeup. Well, you know, they just kind of try to make you look better. It's hard to make my ugly face look better, but she tried. And so we're sitting there, right. And I get to that same part about, you know, the story, and we hear 3 loud claps. And everybody in the room was just like, what was that? Like, where did that come from? What was it? And then that makeup girl, she was like, I'm done. Like, she sat there for about 10 minutes. And then, you know, my nephew, or not my nephew, Scorpion, thought he saw something in the hallway. He's like, literally, me and her both, this afterwards, you know, he said, we looked on the hallway and we saw like a shadow. He's like, and then she just grabbed her stuff and took off. And I didn't know why she had taken off so fast, because she stuck around a good 10 minutes after the noise was heard. And then she, you know, after something happened after that, and then she took off. And then I talked to Scorpion. He said, yeah, there was like something in the hallway that scared her. So by the time we left from doing the shoot, which was literally last July, it's been a year, you know, she heard the noise, it freaked her out. And then we talked about it, you know, those 2 guys from Britain, you know. Then, you know, when we see she sees the shadow, she's like, you know, I'm out of here. She grabbed her bag and was like, you know, and I didn't know that she had seen a shadow, because Scorpion told me afterwards. It was dark by the time we got out and we were leaving. And he said, dude, you know, she grabbed her bag. She walked out. It was because we saw something in the hallway. And so I don't know, you know, how this all works. I just know that it is what it is. When you talk.
It's a bad number for, you know, for that kind of thing as well, you know, 3, you know, 3 bangs in a row, you know, that's never a good time.
From what I understand, like I had some people on my show, the Atchastains, and what they had said, you know, when we did one, people call them demonologists, but they're not really demonologists. They don't like to be called that. They're just like, they're very strong in their faith, and they try to help people get rid of these evil spirits that mess with them. They had said that, you know, the 3, we talked about it on that show.
Mocking the Trinity.
Yeah, the mocking of the Trinity.
Mocking of the Trinity, yeah.
Oftentimes, too, people will report seeing Dogman in 3s, you know. It happened out there near Joppa, you know, here in Texas, where some ancestral land that my dad's mother's family owned. And I sent some people out there to go hunting. And these guys were, you know, pretty rough trade. One of them was an ex-con, he was in prison for 7 years, and so he wasn't a scary guy. And he goes out there and he has an encounter with these 3 creatures, and so, you know, I told that story on DER. But it was like he came to the club and was white as a ghost. He said, I ran into these things. I don't know what they were. And then there was another, his brother who went out there, same area, and they see what looks like a pale humanoidal looking creature crawling around on a tree. Same area. So, you know, you wonder, and then of course I talked to a Native American friend of mine, and he says that's a skinwalker, and that those were all skinwalkers, and that's what they believe. And then of course that the area of Lake Texoma, when I talked to the tribal police officer, he said that's skinwalker. You know, those are skinwalkers out there. And I'm like, well, it is curious that it's so close to the reservation, but by the same token, they didn't really seem to exhibit the kind of behavior that you would attribute to a skinwalker. Typically would be like a single entity. That's what I think. I don't know if I'm right about that.
I have to agree with you. Yeah.
But it is odd. I mean, you know, and I don't know what to make of it. It's interesting though that Gary, you live in that area. It could be Gary out there, you know, doing whatever.
I'll tell you this: we've got things running around central and southeastern Oklahoma that everything you've covered tonight, except for the hyena thing, and I have actually heard a hyena laugh. But everything you've covered tonight, we've got, because I mean we're such a melting pot for the Native American First Nations people, you know, with the Trail of Tears and all the reservations, and it's. Sure. I mean, as Jeremiah knows, my ancestral farm, you know, we've been there since 1851. We we have Sasquatch and have had Sasquatch for generations. You know, it's like the
same in my property. Yeah,
kids. You know, well, our family literally plants 2 gardens. We plant a garden for us and a garden for the forest folk.
Yep. Yeah.
Gary, you know, the canine variant too in Dogman is a hyena-looking type of
It is.
Dogman.
It is.
And that area where you're at, and also Western Missouri, has had sightings of canine variant too.
Yeah.
One of my admin, Ashira 7, she actually had an encounter with a canine variant too.
Yeah, even that correspondence that I did with your team, they thought that it was a canine variant too.
We had a pair of girls, the girls I told you about up here. One was a DEC officer. They described it as a 7-foot German Shepherd. You know, very wolf-like German Shepherd with legs like ours.
I've got to jump off and jump on with Spaced Out Radio here shortly, but I got one question for you that's really kind of stuck in my craw lately. And with you taking the reports that you have in your background and your spiritual background too, what is your thoughts on this real skinny gray figure they're calling the rake? You know, they're saying the rake is an internet phenomenon. Hearing a lot of reports of that physical description.
I think that the rake is just a name for a pale humanoid creature that a lot of people have seen, and the name puts people off, you know. And speaking of the hyena cryptid creature, you know, my part-time co-host Ryan, he that's what he had. He saw one of those in Arizona. I believe that they're all in the southwestern corridor. We don't get a lot of those in this neck of the woods, but I do know of one, and only one really report that I've ever heard of, I think, was in Central Texas, of a hyena type. For some reason, they're kind of in that Ozark area down into Louisiana, going down far south of Alexandria, and then they kind of disappear. You don't hear anything about them. I haven't heard anything about them. East Texas, all the way until you get to West Texas, right. And then from West Texas, you hear about them all the way to California. But for some reason, they're just not in that area, in that corridor. And somebody told me one day when we were talking about this, and I don't know how true this is, I don't want to throw his name out there, but he did a lot of research in East Texas, and he said that, this is what he believes, that the Big Thicket in Texas, which is one of only 2 places in the country that's considered jungle, the Big Thicket is so just thick woods, you know. When Cato Lake is out there, you know, they haven't even finished mapping it. You can't even see the whole thing with a satellite. It's so ridiculous. But he said that the Sasquatch and the Dogmen are so aggressive and so bad in those areas that those hyena type cryptids never gained a foothold in that area.
I believe it.
I mean, that's what this guy said. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I'm just listening to this guy talk, and he could be just blowing smoke through my ears for all I know. But this is what he said. He's come to the conclusion. He's from Louisiana. He's a researcher. And he said that he didn't get them in the South either. He didn't get like any of those hyena. They're up there going up from, you know, northern Louisiana and up into like you know, like what you were saying, Nick, about Missouri and going.
Yeah,
it's kind of regional thing, you know. And then in Oklahoma, you get, you know, these Bigfoot that can be highly aggressive, and people say they see these Bigfoot in Oklahoma, and a lot of times they say that they look evil. I mean, and they give off the presence of evil, you know. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a regional thing. I think there's way more types than people think.
Hey, just to clarify something for the people out there who are going to be listening to this, the rake, yes, it was a made-up name, and I know Ryan Tremblay, if he listens to this, he'll understand why I'm mentioning this. Yes, it was a made-up internet name. However, it's a name that's been adopted for a certain type of creature, cryptid, that fits the description. And it really is out there. I've read well over 200 reports of a white, skinny humanoid.
Yeah.
boned humanoid, and you might as well give it a name. A name by any other name is same thing. I'm sorry, guys. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you want to call it Yeti, Yowie, I don't care. It's still what we think of as a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And a rake is a tall, bony, white, almost opaque humanoid.
Yeah.
And yes, it has claws, and yes, it is aggressive. I've read well over 200 reports. In the beginning, when I started out, I used to get 1 or 2 calls a week. It jumped up to 14. Now it's well over 40 calls a week of all different cryptids. And sometimes I even feel like I'm a counselor for these people, because they're really feel impacted. Their lives have been impacted by what they saw, what they encountered. And they're not out there saying I was drunk or anything either. I was high. It's something they really saw. So, like I've mentioned on your show before, Jeremiah, over in California, Washington, Oregon, in a 20-year span, there was 3,000 reports of Bigfoot. In that same 20-year span, up in Canada, there was 650. So are you telling me in that 20-year span, 3,600 people who actually reported seeing a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, they're all bullshitting?
Exactly.
I'm gonna call it like I see it. And what about the people that didn't report it? Like Josh even mentioned, and I've said before, the people didn't report it because they, number one, don't want to be ridiculed. Number two, it might cost them their job, or it might cost them a promotion, or it might just cost them their name in the town. My prediction is, and I've said this on another show, next 3 years, things are going to come out. That's how that's going to go.
Well, Gary, what you said though, when we were talking, you said Bigfoot, which is just a catch-all term for everything that's tall and hairy and humanoid.
1956, Yeah.
And then Jeremiah, unfortunately, where you're at, Jeremiah, there's a lot of reports of this rake-like creature up there where you're at.
My stepson, unfortunately, saw one a couple weeks ago, and he came back to the house scared shitless, and the way he described it, I was thinking that's what it was. I went out back, loaded up, went out back and took a peek just in case, that's not what it was. But I explained to him that they may look ferocious, but they're harmless. It scared the shit out of him. He's only 10.
Talking about a rake?
Yes.
Rake? You're kidding me.
Yeah,
No.
And I'm taking the things are pure D evil. On
they do attack people. Yes.
Do they?
Yeah.
See, I've heard mixed things from people. I've heard that they're harmless, and I've heard people tell me they're.
Maybe you were talking about some other type of cryptid or creature or whatever.
Yeah,
No.
Really?
Let me throw it out there real quick for you. Jeremiah, just real quick, you're going to take on a rake with only one thing I've ever heard, over 200 reports, and many people have encountered them, is fire.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask me, how do I get fire onto one of these things besides a blowtorch? Okay, get yourself a flare gun. Okay? Fire. That's about the only way you're going to take this thing on.
I think you hit a button. You're no longer on speakerphone. We can barely hear you. Me? Yeah.
No.
Gary, before you go, I sent my goblin that me and Stacey recorded in the room.
Yeah.
I sent you that real quick. Play it for Josh.
Yeah.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked about the
real
horns.
muffled, Josh.
I don't know why that is. Can you hear me better now?
No.
Are you like on a Bluetooth speaker or something?
No, not at all. I don't know what's going on here.
Stuff was going missing, and we set up a camera, and came back, and it was on the bed, and we watched it, and this was on it.
Can you guys hear me?
Same little squeaky voice.
It's muffled for some reason.
I don't know what it is. I'm sitting here trying to figure out why it's doing what it's doing.
Well, I don't want to say anything, but wow, here we go. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
You're still squeaking.
Golly, I don't get it. I don't know what's going on.
Are you on speakerphone?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Try turning off speakerphone and turning it back on.
Jeremiah, if we could, I have a message here that I'm going to have to be getting off myself. So maybe we could wrap it up with Josh in the next 5 minutes or so.
That's no problem. I gotta get off too. I just wanted to show him this.
I had a question for him. If we could just get to the gargoyle thing, I had a big question for him because I've read and I've spoken with people about that, and I just had something I wanted to clarify.
Two he mentions a thing around that had something around its neck. Look at this thing.
Same thing. You know what though? It's coming up against the gargoyle. I'm always trying to war game in my mind how you would take one down, and they're kind of unbeatable. My gosh.
Okay.
There he is.
Muted, Josh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
That's weird. It just like went off by itself. I didn't touch anything. It was just like, that's weird. I don't
it's weird.
Maybe our subject matter is a little too much. I was having that issue in the studio.
And yep.
An alphabet soup agency called No Such Agency could be monitoring us, and it's you might laugh, but never know.
You know nothing.
Well, all you can do is laugh. I mean, you can't let them know that you take it too seriously,
Right. Otherwise, you get a knock on.
Yeah, because Tuesday this was happening. The lights were going off and on, and a bunch of weird stuff was happening. And my wife was in the studio, and she got up and was like ready to go. I was like, I've only had a couple weird things happen in that studio. One was I was in there. I was taking reports like I do, and my office is right next in the next room over from my office for my job, and then the studio is on the other side of the wall. And then on the other side, there's like this place where they do like eyelashes or nails. I don't know, something. You hear people talking next door in some sort of weird language. And I know there's people next door are Vietnamese. Well, my godson's Vietnamese, and I could hear them talking, and it wasn't Vietnamese. I don't know what that was. And it was late at night. It was about 11 o'clock. And I thought, man, them ladies are in there late. So I come out of my studio, and I just got off the phone with somebody from I think, Oregon. And of course, 9 o'clock over there. It was 11 o'clock for me. And I walked out and I looked, and their shop was closed up, and the lights were all off, and there was nobody in that office park but me. And I went to my truck. Yeah, it was weird. I went to my truck, and there was nobody out in the parking lot. Nothing. I mean, it was dead silent. There was nothing out there. And, so there's a girl that works there part time, and she speaks good English, and I talked to her, and I asked her if they were there, and she was like, "Oh," she's like, "We leave at 8 o'clock," and I'm like, "Okay, that was eye opening." I was like, "That's weird," and I thought I had heard something bump against the wall one time, but other than that, nothing's really happened there. But I guess that particular night, maybe the subject matter or something brought something out. I don't know. I think that.
Somebody
a little too heavy.
Yeah. Josh, before we close it up for the night, I did want to backtrack on something you were talking about, the gargoyles. Several hundred reports I've read. I've spoken to people about it. Basically, the toes, it's the 3 toes with the heavy duty nails. I wanted to ask you, anybody ever say anything about a tongue? It was an extremely long lizard-like tongue split down the center, almost like a forked tongue. Anybody ever say anything about that?
I can't. You can't see the tongue in this one. All you can see is a set of deer antlers, but it's not tall. It's short, and it hops across the.
Yeah, but nothing about a tongue or anything they would say, huh?
I can't remember anything like that. I mean, I've taken so many reports, and I just can't even. But I can't. I can go back on my archives and look. I mean, heck, I probably take half a dozen reports every other day or every day, of whatever. And when you talk to some people, you may end up talking to them an hour, 2 hours, and getting all kinds. And then they'll say, well, hey, I know somebody else who's got a story, and then just goes from there. And every time I drop a show, I'll get, a dozen reports from people that, have something similar to that particular episode. I recently got, somebody told me this, and I don't know if it's true, but the vampire legends are very strong in certain cities. And this was yesterday. I was talking to somebody about vampires, and they weren't from there. It was the waiter at the restaurant. But that he said that his friend was from El Paso. And I guess, that's something that's I have just gotten so many people tell me that vampires exist in El Paso, and that there's some sort of like weird vampiric type beings, that supposedly live under the ground. And then, of course, New Orleans is a hotbed for supposedly vampire type entities. And I got a story today. Somebody sent me about vampires. This guy says, I absolutely believe that they exist. They're real. Let me know when you want to talk about this. And I don't know what to think of that. I've gotten reports of them. I remember at one time, one of my colleagues had said that we get reports of werewolves, but not vampires. And I was like, that's not true. Because if you listen, people give you stories. One of them, ex-girlfriend of mine, the only thing that she'd ever that scared her, she told me, was one, and it happened in El Paso. And I guess, when we started talking and this guy said that about the El Paso thing, it's like I've gotten more stories. She said that they walked out of a restaurant and this thing literally, like, it was a guy, and he opened his mouth and he was starting to pull his like skin back, and these needle-like teeth were popping out. Is that a vampire? I have no idea.
Well, see, one thing that I wanted to get at you with Josh on that rake deal is my first wife is from Peru, and my son is half Peru. Down there, they have something they call the Los Maceros, the gray ones. And they describe, and if you even look at the lore and the legend, the Nosferatu style vampire is tall, gangly, gray with long arms. And I've always wondered if maybe these so-called rake sightings might be a vampire variant or something.
Yeah, something that's lived underground. And the Peruvian thing is interesting now too. Now I can get into that just for a second. I know you got to run, Gary, but I was going to tell you, I talked to an entomologist not too long ago, and I got in touch with him because when I did the giant spiders episode, somebody said, "Now I got something really freaky for you." Well, I hear that all the time, and I'm going like, "Well, try me." Well, this was. And what he said was, this was Peruvian, and he said that there was a type of spider,
the coconut spider.
It's a very smart creature, and it'll bite someone, and it'll paralyze them. Then it'll crawl up a tree, and it'll sit there and wait. And when nobody else comes around, then it'll go back down and it'll feed. And it actually drinks blood. It's a vampiric type spider, and it likes to drink blood from creatures, from animals, reptiles, and mammals, whatever. And it's a very rare. And he said that this spider, it's a real spider. He says that it actually exists. They don't really have a name for it, but the Peruvians know it, and they have a weird name for it.
Lamejeros.
Is that what that is?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he said that what the thing does is, if it interrupts, the feeding is interrupted at past a certain point, that person doesn't recover. They either die or they become a vampire type being. And when he was telling me this, and I'm going like, this guy's a scientist, and I'm going like, really? And you would think that that's crazy, but there's a woman who lives in Kentucky or Tennessee now, but she used to live in Kentucky near these caves. And she said that, and I'm going to do a show about this. So this is just a little sneak peek or whatever, but I'm going to interview these people. These caves contain these crystal colored spiders, and that she says that when they bite people, that they are creating this rake type creature. Now that is the weirdest thing when you go from the Peruvian thing. And that's weird that we're talking about Peru, and there's all these threads. You pull one thread, and there's another thread, and I could talk from now until Christ returns about all this stuff. It's crazy. The stuff that just, I mean, you can't discount it because the threads are all there, and I believe that we all have a piece of the puzzle. And if there's so many people, like Nick was saying, in this field, they're just so loaded full of themselves and full of crap, and they're not interested in researching and doing. It's a popularity contest, or it's about money, and they'll bag on each other, and someone will have really good evidence, really good research, and they just won't get it out because somebody else is jealous of them, and
Yep.
There's so much of that going on. And that woman that I was talking to, she kind of got scared off by someone, but then she came back and was like, somebody else had went to her and said that I was, don't trust him, don't talk to Josh Turner, blah blah blah, he's a bad guy, and I told her, I said, I have nothing to gain by misrepresenting you or misusing your story. These are people that just don't want you to for me to have that information, because for whatever reason, it's a popularity freaking contest to them,
Right.
That's all.
And just for the audience to look up, if you look up in zoology, science, real science, there's a thing called a coconut spider. It is gigantic. I mean, you look this up for real, and you're going to say to yourself, I don't want to go there to that country because this is real. I can't imagine. I've seen a wolf spider. It's as big as my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Coconut spider.
I hate spiders.
Guys.
I'm with you, Jeremiah. I hate spiders too. One of them shows, I was in there taking the reports, and I felt something crawling on my leg, and I kept looking around, and there's nothing there. And it was the cord from the, and I'm going like, oh my God, what is? And the lady was like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. And she's just like, I kept feeling like someone touched me,
Gary, before you go though, man, I got to throw something out there. I keep throwing stuff out there at all different shows. We really need, and you too, Josh, we really need to get together and go to some of these really high, strange places. Get about 8 or 9 guys, like ourselves together and go there. Now, Josh, in 2020, D.A. Roberts and I are going to get together an expedition. I just was telling Jeremiah and Gary about it.
2022.
Go ahead.
They said 2020, and I was like, we're going back.
I'm sorry, 2022. Sorry. And it's in Alaska. There's a town in Alaska that everybody just got out of there because they were attacked by Sasquatch. Yeah, that would be fantastic to go there.
Me and Ryan talk about that on the Genosqua episode, I believe it was.
Right.
Yeah, maybe it was the Dugway. I don't remember which one exactly, but we talked about that. I forgot the name of the town, but yeah,
there was the Genosqua or Dugway or more eastern Canada area.
Me and Weatherly talked about that. When David Weatherly came on my show, we talked about his book because he's doing cryptids from each state, and he's done a bunch of them, and I think the most recent was the Tar Heel State as of this point. I mean, Weatherly lives here in Central Texas. He's a really good guy, and we were talking, and the town Port Chatham, I believe it is.
That's it.
Yeah, and so me and him were talking about that, and we touch upon that during the David Weatherly interview, when he came on. He's been on my show a couple times, but that particular time we talked about that. Yeah, it's a very weird thing. Hey, Gary, before we go, I was going to ask you a question.